Welcome back to the Gleam Fishing Channel. I'm Darren Guard, and we're very lucky to have a guest with us today, Mike Holland from Clearwater Mussels. I've known Mike I guess I've known you for a period of time now, Mike, and it's I've got to say it's a privilege to have you here. You've been enjoying the podcast, which is really good to get that positive feedback. It sounds like, just looking here, you've been marine farming for 35 years. Whenever, just so you know, whenever I mention your name, people smile and go, he's a good bastard. So, take that out of this, and I genuinely believe that. You were named the Marine Farmer of the Year by the Marine Farming Association in 2011. You've been heavily involved with the Marlborough Shellfish Quality Program and the Marine Farming Association, I think it's for 17 years there. More importantly, you're also a First Mate navigator. So for those that don't understand, we've got First Mate, which is the Seafood Sector Support Network, which is just good buggers, largely like Mike, that just help people in the aquaculture sector or the fishing industry if things are struggling, if they're struggling. Look, welcome, Mike. It's really good to have you here. It's a bit chilly here this morning, so we're sort of getting into July and a few frosts and a bit of condensation and that around. So yeah, welcome and good to have you here.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. Yeah, really good to be here. Be invited to it. So I started off as I was brought up on a farm in West Otago, in a close to Tapanui, on a wee forestry town way down south, and went to school in Gore, and I could never get the hang of that school thing, so I had a year and a couple of months secondary education, but half that I wasn't there. I'd managed to wag or helped out on the farm or whatever, so I ended up having about 8 months in total secondary education, and left when I was 14, just a couple of months after 14, and didn't go back. And when I turned 15, I managed to get a clearance from the school and go to work. And I helped Dad on the farm a bit, and then I went and got a job at the local sawmill, which was government owned at the time. So the government in New Zealand owned two sawmills. There was Waipa and Rotorua, and Conakwa Hills down my way. So there was about 220 odd people worked there. So good job, loved that job, and worked there for a few years. And then I wanted to go shearing. So from a farming background, shearing fitted pretty well. So I got into that, and I'm left-handed, so it should be a left-handed shearer, but most sheds are set up for right-handed. So if you are a left-handed shearer in a right-handed shed, you've got a lot more work to do. You got to, when you drag your sheep out, you got to turn it around, and then when you finish, you got to turn it around. And so anyway, I persevered with my right hand, and that's how I shear today. So done that for a number of years, and then about 1985-ish, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, they were in the mussels and lived in Havelock, and we used to go up and have a holiday with them, me and my wife, and always used to go out on the boat. You'd done that each year for a number of years, and early 1988 got a phone call to say that they were expanding and they wanted to take on another crewman. Was I interested? Not bloody hell, I thought I'd never leave south, but anyway, we
from sheep to mussels.
Yeah, still farming, but me and my wife went to work for a couple of days and went lay in bed at night, hardly sleep, and think, are we going to do it, are we not? And in the end we did. So he rung back in a couple of days, I gave him a yes. So we not long bought a house, so we rented that out and got a furniture truck organised and moved to Marlborough. And I remember it well. It was the May the 1st, 1988 was when I started. It was a sad day because I was opening a duck shooting, and it's the first duck shooting I'd missed for forever, so it was
classic farmer.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Oh, I missed duck shooting season.
Yeah,
What
so
a tragedy.
It was a hard, bit of pill to swallow, that one. But anyway, so I started, and we thought we'd give it 6 months to see how we went, and and it's still there. So it's a job I've really enjoyed. Started as the boy on the deck, and then within a year they sent me to over here to Nelson to Polytech to sit my skipper's ticket, which was a CLM, and I'm not sure if you remember, Darren, but I was in the same class as you.
Oh, yeah,
river.
Geez, that was a while ago,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
yeah,
So you were...
So that would
yeah.
be about 1989 it was.
Yeah, it would have
Yeah.
been 88, 89, yeah.
Yeah, so sat my ticket then.
Yep.
Then went back working on the deck, and shortly after that, a few months later, the skipper moved on. So they took me into the wheelhouse and said, "There's a seat. It's yours now." So away I went, and a bit of a learning curve for a boy who never thought he was going to be a skipper. And so we had an old boat called the Miss Westland, old steel boat. It was come from the west coast, old Basil Piner. And
well-known fishing family down there, the Piners.
Yeah. He built it and had the plans. Apparently, had the plans on a cigarette packet type thing. There was no plans. So when they went to survey it, they had quite a job to get plans drawn up and stuff. So I had that and the wooden barge called the Miro. Been around the Sounds for a long, long time.
She's been around a long time, hasn't she? Very classic.
So I pushed that round for a number of years, harvesting mussels and farm work and what have you. And then in 96, a couple of years prior to that, they decided to build a motorised barge. And in 1996, it was launched. So that was built in Image Boat Builders in Fremantle, and it's called the Plurus Image. So I went over for the launching of that and went in the shed and seen this thing. It's 29 metres long by 8 metres wide, and how the hell are we going to get up the Havelock channel? It looked so big to what I've been used to. But after a few trips, you sort of get used to it. And there was an old fella from Nelson here, Gilbert Inkster.
Yeah, the Inksters.
He bought it out to New Zealand for the company.
So is that the first? So you said, because you went from like early days of the mussel industry, as you said, you're just towing barges around that had the product and gear on it.
Yep.
So was that the first or one of the first actually motorised barges? One of the early ones, wasn't it?
It was one of the earlier ones. The Plurus Trader was certainly there before us. Chris Godsiff and Rob Pauly built that one. That was certainly there before it. And there was one or two others around. But, it was probably number 3 or 4 or 5.
Probably the next step, probably the first sort of large into it, this is us sort of thing.
Yep, it was. And Ivan Godsiff, he was a skipper on the Plurus Trader steel boat, and I remember him going past me. That thing done 10 knots steel boat when it was built in Tauranga. And I remember him passing me one day in the old Westland, and he went past me like I was sitting still. And little did I know, a few years later I was going to do the same to him in the Plurus Image. So
nice.
We often talked about that, me and Ivan. So that arrived was launched in March '96, and Gilbert and his crew brought it out to Nelson. We picked it up there and took it through to Havelock and set up all the gear, the deck gear on it, which took probably, I can't remember, a couple of months or something probably, and then went to work on that. And I drove that for, I think it was about 10 years roughly, through to 2007. And that's when the company changed hands and I was asked to come ashore then. So if we just step back a wee bit, the company was originally PBA Mussels, which was John Pickering, Robbie Brownlee and Dave Antanovich, which had Westpac mussels up in Auckland, and that was sort of a home for the mussels, or a lot of them. And then in the early 2000s, Dave Antanovich sold out and Tally's bought his share, so then that become PBT Mussels.
And then PB and Tally's, makes sense, yeah.
And then that took us through to 2007, when PB, Pickering and Brownlee, sold out and Tally's bought them, and then they combined with John Young and Lynn Godsiff, who had Clark Island, another mussel farm, and so Clark Island and Tally's combined, and that's when Clearwater Mussels was born, you might say, in 2007, 1st of April 2007. April Fool's Day. I don't know if it was a good day, but no, it all went pretty smoothly.
Seems like it's worked out all right for you.
Yeah, it has. Yep. So that's when, prior to that, they asked me to come ashore. And so there was just me and John Young sort of running the business there for a lot of years. And so we were pretty much stretched, both of us. But, yeah, it all went pretty well. And right through to today. So I've had sort of 20-odd years on the water and, retire later next year. It'll be getting sort of close on 20 years ashore, helping run the business and stuff. So, yeah.
It's a bit of an adjustment coming ashore, isn't it? Like it's, you used to think it was hard yards working on the deck and the weather and the rain and the long hours, and then the old body aches and it's sore, and then you get to start driving a desk, and then you realise you're just as bloody tired, because it's all the, I don't know about for you, but for me it's all the mental work. It's like the emails and the computer and the thinking, and that, it's a different sort of fatigue, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it definitely is, and took me a while. Probably took me a good year before I was comfortable. There was periods through that first year. Have I made the right move, or haven't I? Because I really enjoyed being a skipper, and I thought that would be me through to retirement thing. But a year into it, I started to feel comfortable, and then as I grew into the job, I'd hate to be trying to do the job if I hadn't had the time on the water. It's just
Pretty
everything makes
important.
more sense. And you get a call from the skipper, he's got a breakdown, he's got an issue or something, you can relate to it pretty quick. So it's it's big help, I think.
Yeah, no, that makes a big difference. I was sort of the same, I guess, because I worked on a lot of the Guard's fisheries boats, and then when I came ashore quite a few years ago, and you're the vessel manager, and it was a benefit to everyone. You get a phone call at 1 a.m, oh, this pump's broken, or this is that, and quite often you could say, well, if you go down, back of the engine room, port side, behind the Raycore filter, and there's a little thing there, and turn that to the right, and the spanner's over there, so it's really beneficial. I guess with any job, whether it's a primary industry or not, it's really beneficial to have that on-the-job experience before you sort of get into that management role, I think it gets the best results largely.
I really do, Darren. Yeah, I think yes, your crew in that respect you better too. I think because they know you've done it. And I remember way back, I don't do any relieving skippers trips now because I'm just too busy, and But I remember, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into it, I got a call at 4 o'clock in the morning. Skipper had an accident or something. He was at a hospital, and I looked. Well, got no one else to go, so grabbed my gear and went with the gear and a bit of food, and away we went. And there was only those 4 crew that were on the boat at that time. There was only about one that knew I'd skippered, and
they would have thought, oh shit, they pulled the old mate out of the office. This is going to be a disaster.
Yeah. And went and done it, and put the boat beside the wharf as we come into Havelock there. And I heard there was had my door open, just said, "You see the wharf?" Then I heard a couple of them say, "Oh, this fella knows a bit what he's doing, doesn't he?" And after 20 years, I guess he should do, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, it's funny that people long forget, like it's sort of. I guess that's quite important. What we're trying to do with the Gleam Fishing Channel is recording those stories and the history, so people going forward actually know that we had a history. We've been there and done a few of those things, and that's really important. So Clearwater Mussels. So thanks for telling us the journey, because I actually wondered how that worked. I mean, you sort of hear little snippets, but to get that timeline and to see where it is today, so how large is it today? I mean, it's what you've got, how many vessels have you got, like farms and bits and pieces? Because, I'm pretty sure you're one of, or if not the largest aquaculture company or mussel company in New Zealand, and sort of, you're the man, you and John. So tell us a bit about Clearwater today.
Yeah, it's certainly grown, and when we started in 2007, it was probably about maybe 4,000 or 5,000 tonne annually. Now we're knocking on the door of 30. Haven't quite got there yet, but that's the target.
So 30,000
tonne
mussels harvested every year.
Yeah, that's the target.
Well, that's a lot of bloody mussels.
Yeah, it is a lot of mussels, and so we've got about 2,700 lines throughout the top of the south here. So they start at Port Underwood. We've got a few in East Bay in the Queen Charlotte Sound. Then we come around Cape Jackson, starts at Port Gore, and right throughout the Pleuris Sound, Admiralty, Catherine Cove, farm up Port Hardy. We haven't got anything in Grizel's, and then we move through to Tasman Bay out off Motueka, and the sort of offshore farming there, and then round separation into Golden Bay, and good spread of areas right up through there, right up to almost up to the Spit. So, we've got 12 vessels in total. So we've got 5 based in Port Terakoe and 7 in Havelock. So they range, and there's out of the 12, there's 11 of them are aluminium and 1 steel, and even that steel one's got a aluminium wheelhouse. So yeah, we like our aluminium, us fellas. The first boat I had anything to do with aluminium was called the Muscat. So it's a catamaran, and it was built in Tauranga. A fella called I think it was Max Muntley had the building up there, and it come to Havelock about, I think it would be about 1990, maybe 91, somewhere around that era, and one of the first to come into the industry in alloy, and there was, chasing electrolysis around for a year or two until everybody learnt about it, including the local electrician. And once we all learnt about it and knew what was going wrong and got on top of it, and we know so much about aluminium now, and
it's a learning curve, isn't it? Like a wooden boat, you got rot, and you've obviously got corrosion in steel boats, and electrolysis and osmosis in fiberglass boats. So they all have their different quirks. If you don't pay attention, don't they?
They do, and that boat's about 35-year-old now and still going strong. It's had a refit there back in about 2010, but it goes pretty well. Staff, we've hover around that 75-ish, maybe up to 80 at times, but about 75. And some boats have got up. Some of the bigger ones have got 5, skipper and 4 crew. Some of them have got 2, depending on what role they're doing, what size boat it is. So we don't have a big turnover, to be fair. Our skippers don't move far at all. As a rule, they're pretty well rewarded, and so they don't sort of move off very often. There's we try and get our skippers within our company. So if we want to bring them up within, so every year, most years, we'll be sending 2 or 3 fellas away to school to sit their ticket, and we find that works pretty well. It gives them something to, they can see a bit of a pathway to climb up through Clearwater Mussels.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, and that way we can train them the way we want them. We want it done, and not to say that people from outside wouldn't do it the same way, but it's a bit of a progression thing. Like they can see a pathway, and I think that way you can keep your deck crew a bit, some of them seem a bit more stable and stay with us. So.
And as we talked about before, they've learnt from the deck, and then they end up in the chair, don't they, in the wheelhouse. So that gives them a good understanding of what's happening for the boys, or what the boys like and what the boys don't like, and try, because the whole game is trying not to annoy the crew too much.
Yeah. And I, look back at my own pathway through the mussel industry, and it is possible to start at the bottom and get up towards the top. So you're just looking for people with a bit of leadership, bit of initiative. Good clean habits, around the boat, and good clean habits within themselves, and
housekeeping, like housekeeping and personal hygiene too.
Definitely,
like that's the thing. You get a few smelly guys that are doing long days in the middle of summer. So we always used to battle with that a bit. So no, that's so. What's I mean, you've got a fairly large size business there, Mike. Do you ever get any sleep? What's your average day as, you're running the largest aquaculture business, for mussels in the country over in Havelock. What's the average day like for someone in your role?
The phone can go and you change direction straight away, and I actually don't mind that, you get a breakdown, or, you're short of a staff or short of something, and I don't mind that sort of thing. You've got to come up with a bloody solution and sort it sort of pretty quick. So, I had to normally get in the office about 6:30 in the morning, and, I could have my day planned. Right, I'm going to have a full day in here and try and knock some emails out of the road and deal with a bit of stuff, and the phone goes, and, you're all of a sudden you're away in another direction trying to fix a breakdown or solve a problem of some sort. But, it's challenging at times, but I never give in. I'll find a way around it somehow. So my job involves office work. You're ordering supplies. You're working with staff. Hiring staff or staff issues the odd time you're dealing with. Working with the engineers. On jobs coming up, or you might have a project coming up, or you've got a breakdown. You've got a boat on its way in. You want it done sort of straight away. Just ordering stuff like, I'll give you an example. We've got a boat, the Sounds Legend. It's got a 3412E, big V8 cat in it, and unfortunately, they don't make the engine any longer. We hunted all around the world thinking there might be one somewhere, but couldn't find one. So got onto the in the States, a bit like our Trade Me here, and there was an operation outfit over there had two of them, and they had about 7,000 airs on them, and the boat was actually owned by an Australia chap, but he was in the States. He was pulling them out to put even more power in, so he's obviously, got a bit of an issue with money or something. But so we
needs a tax dodge.
Yeah. So we got one of them and got it out to New Zealand, and it's just sitting there so that when that motor decides it's had enough, 2 days on your way to work again. If you wait till it comes in, you pull the motor, strip the motor down, and because they're not making it, there'll be parts around the world for it, but there might be one part that you might have to wait for. So it's my job is a lot of thinking ahead all the time.
Yep.
What's going to go wrong? What keeping supplies up and that. So it's most of the time I get it right. Sometimes it'll catch us, but it's pretty rewarding. I like that part of it. Yeah.
So preventative maintenance, that's the thing. That's a lot of organisations have got a few boats. That's you walk in and there's an engine and a gearbox, and there's some stressed fella there trying to find parts, or because you want sort of one of everything if you can. Which makes a difference, and it can save a season, can't it? If you're in the height of a season and unfortunately something lets go, then you can get the job done quickly. So what about changes? What sort of changes have you seen in the industry? You've been here quite a while, and the boats have changed. There's what sort of development or progress have you sort of seen in the aquaculture sector or in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, okay. The ownership of farms, for one thing, there used to be a lot of little individual, one person owned one farm or two or three farms. There's not heaps that now. The little fellas sort of sold out to the bigger players, and so that's one. When I first started, when we were harvesting, we used to harvest into sacks, 25 kilogram sacks, and there was no such thing as 1 ton bulk bags then. So all your mussels went into sacks, and a lot of it went to Auckland to the fresh market. So we'd be filling sacks up, stack them on a pallet, and then they went on a truck to Picton. They were put in a railway wagon, and then they were railed up to Auckland, and they'd arrive there, a day later or whatever it was. And then a few years later, then they started doing containers. So we'd have containers on the Havelock wharf. So we'd fill the sacks out at the on the harvester, and sometimes we'd have a couple of bargefuls a day. Another barge come out and get a load of us, and then back to Havelock, and then you'd lift that. You'd wait. Carry that sack for a second time, fill in the container. So some days 2 or 3 days a week we'd be doing 4,000 sacks or 6,000 sacks, depends what the order was. So there was a lot of, you didn't carry any extra weight then. It was, pretty physical work. And then half bulk bags started coming in. So we'd do little sacks and then put some half bulk bags in the container as well. And we thought, hell, that was great,
Yeah, and less work.
Yeah.
Forklift to lift it.
Yeah. And then, I don't know what it was, maybe, I'm guessing the mid-90s or something, the 1 ton bags come out.
Yeah.
And then the little sacks gradually got phased out. And so it's all, you never fill little sacks now, all 1 ton bags. And and that had to happen because, the industry was getting bigger, and, you needed more manpower for the sacks. And the bloody little sewing machines that we used, as soon as it rained, they'd give problems, and could.
So going into bulk basically has just made quite a difference, isn't it?
It did. And then the other big breakthrough in the industry was going from single droppers to continuous rope. So this is the rope the mussels cling to. So in a 110 metre backbone rope, that's your 2 lines, you would have about 400 7-metre ropes hanging off there. So that was
all individual ropes.
Yeah, individual ropes, and that was 2,800 metres. And that would take 6 of us about, it was a long time, say probably 6 to 7, 8 hours to seed that, 4 of us by hand. Now you do that with our machine, you do it in an hour and a half or something, all going well. Yeah. So that was a big breakthrough going from single to continuous, and that rolls through to harvesting. So instead of come harvesting time, you just put your rope in the hauler, and it's just you just keep cutting it off, and it's coming through. So they would be the two big breakthroughs. Would be the sacks to 1 ton bags and single rope to continuous rope.
So you're just now looping the droppers, I assume. So rather than just like this, you now tie it here, then tie it here, and then tie it here. And as you're going through, you're just cutting it off the backbone, so you just got that one constant product rope going through.
Correct. It's just weaved from one backbone to the other. Yeah.
And okay. Well, that makes a difference.
And you have what we call lashings, a bit of string that ties the grow rope to the backbone rope, and that's what you're just cutting, and that string stays on the rope, and it goes in through a rope washer and into a bag.
Yep.
And goes to a yard, whether it's in Terracoa or Havelock, and then it's run through another system, and that string's removed, and the rope's cleaned and repacked back in the bag, ready to go again. Yeah, well, technology certainly. So you've seen an improvement in vessels, I guess, like size and obviously equipment and technology. So the bulk bags. I didn't really think about that, but I know, for example, when the Gleam was involved in the in the 60s when they were hand picking mussels, and that there was just those 25, 30 kg sacks, and they were all round the boat, and you were sewing them up, and I remember we used to do that with the odd year we did that with sort of scallops and oysters as well. You had the tiny sacks, and you had the big needle and the old cotton, and that was someone's job sewing those up every day, and what a pain in the butt that was. And then the bulk bags, the ones I know we moved into bulk bags when we were scalloping that, and they had lids that we just you didn't have to sew anything down, you just put a little tag on them. And so I guess we've made things more efficient, which is if you're doing 30,000 tonne a year of mussels, then you'd have to be a pretty sharp, efficient operation for sure. Yeah, it is, Darren, and we've got a number of boats that are harvested. Some are just straight harvesters, some are dual roll, and when we get busy, we pull them into help harvest. So, we've got in Havelock, we've got what have we got over there? About 3 there that are harvesters or can harvest.
Yep.
And Terracoa, we've got 1, 2, about 3 over there, the same. So, so having the dual roll is good, because when you get a bit of a quieter time, you put them into other work.
Yeah.
And but when you're busy, you haven't got enough boats. Even though we've got 12, when you're really busy, you could do with another 1 or 2 probably. But
Murphy's Law, isn't it? When you're busy, you want more boats, and when you're quiet, you don't want any boats.
Exactly,
That's because the bills keep rolling in no matter what.
And just going back to that, some of the changes, one other thing was way back when we were, before the Pleuris image back into the old boat and the barge, that had hydraulics on it, but then we had another little wooden raft that we used to do our floating with and seeding on. So that never had any hydraulics. So this had a hand winch, 4 hand winches. So the same winches you have on the front of your boat trailer, the crank up one, you had 4 of them on there, and that's how you lifted your line up to tie your floats on, or when you're seeding. So
you'd stand on this little barge, crank the handle, the lines would come up, and then you'd do your work on it.
Yeah. So and if you didn't let that handle go and get your hand out of the road bloody quick, you'd get your knuckles at. So come a long way now. You just pull a lever and the hydraulics and do all the work for you. So
on the one boat, so you don't have the separate barge and the separate this, that, and the other thing. One barge does it all.
Yep, it is. Yep.
The beauty of hydraulics, isn't it? Really, the hardest thing is just pulling the lever.
No,
it's amazing.
It's amazing. It's still, you still look at the hydraulics and think, how the hell's a bit of machinery in a tank of oil and makes all that gear work, and you think, how the hell's that happen? But no, it's great.
No, it's revolutionised most industries, really. You think hydraulics, without a doubt. So what about in your? So it sounds like we know you got a busy role. What about in your spare time? Like, have you anything that you enjoy doing, or any hobbies, or anything that what do you sort of, if and when you get a break, what do you sort of spend time doing?
Yep, no, I got a few hobbies, and when I was skipping, I sort of didn't have many of those things. I didn't have much time away, but when I come ashore, me and my son, we used to do, and my wife, used to do quite a bit of motocross, and really enjoyed that. Still got my bike, but it doesn't get a lot of use now, and as as a nearly 66-year-old, I think you've got to grow up at some point and probably...
It's bloody unfortunate, isn't it? Unfortunate. Your mind is strong, the flesh is weak.
Yeah, but back in 2017, sadly, we lost our only son in a motor vehicle accident, so that took the shine off it a wee bit for me, the motocross. I got back into it and still done a bit, but yeah, I think it's getting close to the end now. It's time to park that one up. Do a lot of road cycling with a push bike, obviously. No battery at this stage, and done that.
You've got to. Once you go there, you'll never go back, Mike.
Yeah. So really enjoy that. Got a group of mates over in Blenheim that was 5 or 6 of us. We ride 3 times a week, and love doing that. Some people say you're crazy on the road on it, but anyway, it seems to go all right. Back in 2018, we had we rode from Picton to Bluff.
Without a battery.
Without a battery, yeah.
Crikey.
So it was something I always wanted to do, and we'd been planning it for a year. So you train hard for those sort of things, and you got to train hard, otherwise you're kidding yourself. And in the meantime, lost my son, so we dedicated that ride to him, and we left in February, 17th, 18th it was, I think it was, and we picked that month thinking that'll be the best weather. You'll get bloody pour sunblock on every day. You'll be sunburnt to hell, but it turned out it was not the best month that year. It was when Cyclone Gita hit. Remember, it ripped the Takata Hill apart.
Oh, yes. So great timing.
Yeah. So we set off, and we knew that was coming, but you got your motels and everything booked, so you got to keep going.
Yep.
So we headed down the west coast. It was a bit longer that way, but we thought the roads were probably a bit quieter. So it was 1,160 k's we done, and took us 8 days. And the leg going into the Haas, that was on our 4th day, was when Cyclone Gita hit, and we got away early that morning, and knowing we'd try and get there before it hit. And just as we come down out of the bush, going into the Haas, you turn right and go over the big bridge there.
Yep.
And it must have been blowing outside, but in the bush you didn't know. And when we come out of that bit of bush there, got onto that bridge, holy bloody hell, what was it blowing? It was coming from the Haas down the riverbed.
Yep.
And I remember going across that 1-lane bridge, and you're leant that far over, leaning into the wind. It was like stand behind a bloody great, Boeing ready to take off in the runway. Leant that far over, you think your wheel's going to come out from underneath you, and got round into the motel there 5 or 10 minutes after that, and it was, then they closed the road over to the Haast, over to Wanaka, and that night it froze and snowed. And this is February I'm talking about. So
great timing.
Oh, yeah. And they didn't open the road until 9 o'clock the next morning, so we couldn't get away any before that. And we went over and stopped at Makarora, which is on the Wanaka side of the pass, for lunch. I think it might have been 1 o'clock or something. And there was 6 of us, and 2 of the fellas, they were starting to get hypothermia. And again, this is February,
February.
Bloody crazy weather. So they got a ride on in the car to Wanaka, and the 4 of us carried on. And then the next morning we woke up in Wanaka, and there was snow. You look up the head of the lake, there was snow on the mountain, again in February, And that's when the weather come right, and it was 3 days from there through to Bluff, and it was not just a ride, it was an adventure,
Absolutely.
Putting up with that sort of weather. So I got that, do the biking, and the third thing I like doing is hunting. So getting out in the hills and chasing a few animals around and what have you. So really enjoy that side of it. So
Well, it sounds like you don't have a lot of spare time. Well, then, I mean, you've got a fair few hobbies, which is, you've got to do what you enjoy, eh?
Yeah. I think it's about getting the balance right. If you just work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's easy to become a bit stale and sour and bitter. And, I've seen 1 or 2 that have been like that, and I don't want to head down that track. So just good for the mind and that. Yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. Maybe you should have done the cycle trail or the trip in July, and you might have you might have got your sunburn the way your luck was going by the sounds of it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, I want to. So I normally ask this question. So this will be something a little bit different. I normally ask, the people that come on the Gleam Fishing Channel, have you ever seen anything or been involved in anything interesting at sea? Sometimes we I guess we've got the benefit of being at sea, out in the environment where there's, amazing marine mammals, and we get to see the awesome sunsets and sunrises, and, there's no light pollution. As I say, we're away from all the city lights, and, have you sort of seen anything that's pretty cool out there, or interesting, or, something that the viewers might be interested in?
Yeah, I have, Darren. I've seen a lot of stuff, just like you say, sunrises, sunsets. You see some real nice ones, and you think, got to wait a camera. And in later years, you got your phone, you do get some shots. You've seen whale, or, one day I remember seeing a bloody massive shark in the Sounds there that was just cruising around. But there is one thing that's always, and all that stuff you've seen, you're happy with it, but there is one thing that has always, I won't say haunted me, but there's no answer for it. And I was steaming, and this would be the early 90s, I'm thinking maybe 91, 94, somewhere in that area. Steaming in the Sounds there, and 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, and looking on the radar, and I seen this blip on the radar, and it was big, come from behind me, and I think I was on about a 3-mile setting, so, a mile and a half behind me and a mile and a half out in front of me. And this thing come on the screen behind me, and shot straight past and went off the front of the screen. I'm thinking pretty quick, maybe 6, 7, 8 seconds, It was really quick. It wasn't on the water, but it had to be quite low to the water for the radar to pick it up. And I quickly ripped my door open to try and work out what the hell it was going so fast and such a big blip. And I could see a faint light, but that's all I could see. I couldn't hear anything because of the noise of the boat, so I don't know if there was any noise to it, but people probably say you're bloody crazy, but I'm 100%. There was definitely something shot past me that early as that morning, and that's probably one of the things that's always puzzled me. Even now, it's still, I think about. I wonder what the hell that was, and I don't have an answer for it, but it was definitely something that come from behind me and disappeared in front of me pretty quick. Yeah.
So whereabouts in the Sounds were you?
I was off. It was just between Norwest Bay and Wilson's Bay, heading north, heading out of the Sounds.
Yep.
And it come So, interested if there's any, if other people, fishermen, seen similar things over the years. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's obviously an interesting topic, and I guess I spoke to my father, Philip Guard, about what you'd seen, and as quick as anything, he said, "Oh, that'll be a jack-o'-lantern." And I looked at him, and I thought, what have you been smoking? Jack-o'-lantern. And I actually Googled a jack-o'-lantern, and of course, jack-o'-lantern is like those a round ball with a light in it that kids play, or you see they hang them at Halloween and things like that. And I sort of said to him, I said, tell me more. And he says, a lot of the old people saw them in the Sounds, Admiralty Bay, and he said particularly around the Chetwoods and the Trios. He said they're a ball of light that, and he said quite often they would follow boats. He says we saw them. No one would talk about them because you're worried that you would get taken away. And he said to me, he said, they often sort of thought, well, maybe it's something like a magnetic ball of fire or something like that. Like they couldn't describe actually what it was. It made no sense. And we sort of got talking about that. And look, the reality is that a lot of people that have been at sea have seen some unexplainable things around them and in the sky. I've certainly seen some things myself, and not a lot of people will want to talk about them, the stigma associated with it. Probably one of the more interesting stories that I can recall. So, you're not alone, Mike. Yeah. That's the most important thing, and hopefully some of the viewers might, wade in with their stories as well. But it was actually about 1988, and I remember I must have been about 87, 88. It was probably my last year at school, I think, because 89 we were doing our ticket together, and Dad was scalloping. So, the boats would all be scalloping at that time of the year. It was Golden Bay. So Sunday to Thursday you scalloped, you got your quota, and then you come home sort of Thursday night. And I remember Friday morning, we were quite excited on a Friday morning because Dad was home hadn't seen him all week, excited and not so excited, because quite often if I was misbehaving during the week, it was, you wait till your father gets home, he'll kick your backside. So depending how I'd behaved during the week as to whether I was excited to see Dad or not on the Friday. Yeah. But I remember this Friday morning, I got up and Dad's sitting at the table and he sort of had his head in his hands a bit. And the house was silent, and I thought, oh, shit, someone's died and they haven't, they haven't told us yet. Or, I remember going to school with a really uneasy feeling that Dad was quiet and not himself. And I sort of felt uneasy all day. And I asked him, what's going on? And he just wouldn't say anything. And Mum actually sort of told the story then, and Dad actually touched on it last night again. So, and all the facts were the same. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning, so they spent the day scalloping in Golden Bay, unloaded at Tirakoe just on dark. So then you head round Separation Point and heading back to the bay. They'd had a bit of a breakdown or something, so they were sort of there by themselves. There wasn't, they're one of the last boats in, as it happens when you have a breakdown. And it was about 2 in the morning, pitch black dark. You know what it's like. They're on the Gleam here. Yep. Their old 471, blaring away. And he saw 5 things on the radar about 8 or 10 miles off, coming from about Farewell Spit. And, thought normally you have your radar set at about 8 or 12 miles. And he saw these things, and you reckon within a heartbeat, they were above him. And he said he sort of stuck his head out, looked up, and there was these 5, sort of a reddish glow. He said they had like a reddish glow. No noise, no rooster tail, no navigation lights, but there was 5 of them there. He was by himself. The crew was in bed, so he went and got the crew up. So the crew, and I've spoken to the crew about this, and he confirms that he's now working on one of Tally's factory boats. And the crew came up here, took one look, largely said, bugger that, and went back down to the accommodation, pulled a blanket over his head. So these things sat there for a while, and then he said then off they went. They were moving in a formation, and they headed over towards the doubles. And I know that sort of gave him a bit of a fright. And within the next few days, they were reported of being seen in Rye Valley and Blenheim, but the likes of Woodburn and that denied that there was any aircraft or anything in the area. So there was no knowledge. If they were aircraft, there was no recorded knowledge of them, and a few other people saw them. So it's you see things, and I've heard my uncles Chris and John talk about various things as well. I was coming back from the Sounds once on the little Destiny G. I was about off Cape Susie, probably about 3 or 4 miles off there. And I saw the same thing, radar, I saw a light. The crew were in bed. Yeah. Some reason there's a bit of a common theme, the skipper's up doing the watch and the crew are in bed enjoying looking at their eyelids. Exactly. And I thought, there's a plane coming, because we're actually in the plane, thoroughfare. They come from sort of Wellington to Nelson that way. I went out, stuck my head out, as you do, and just saw a white light, thought nothing of it. And then it sort of just kept its distance. You got used to on the radar seeing a plane go over at constant speed and they just go past you and just watch them on the radar go off the screen. And this one stayed the same sort of distance behind me, and I thought, maybe it's a boat or whatever it was. But then I got out. I was a bit tired, to be fair. I was fatigued, and I got out and had a look. And the light was just a big white light, and it went off. And I thought, maybe it was a truck up in the hill or something, headlights, whatever it was. And then it came on, but it was over there. And I thought, I'm rubbing. I still remember rubbing my eyes, going, geez, I've had nothing to drink, And then it went off. Then it came on. And it was over there. So it did that 4 or 5 times. And I did similar to Dad. I just shut the wheelhouse and put the old GM up to about 1650 flat out, and just thought nothing of it. And then I just watched it on the radar, and it bolted. So there's a lot of interesting things out there, I can't explain that. Clearly, you can't explain. There probably is a logical explanation. There might be some scientists or someone watching this stuff and going, that's just one of those things. But as I said, Dad and the family were saying, like one of those jack-o'-lantern and all those things that they talked about often in the Sounds and places like that. So, I mean, I'd never heard of anything like that. Have you heard anything like that before?
No, I haven't. But it's probably good to put it out there, and there's your dad had seen something, so there might be more come of it. But it's certainly, and I had crew, I had 3 or 4 crew in bed, but it come on the back of the radar from behind me and disappear. You wouldn't have time to get them up even. It was happened that quick, within a few seconds they were gone off the front again. So
I think the guards might have tracked them because it was actually Bob Guard, a relative of ours, who was a co-pilot on the Safe Air Argosy when they saw the Kaikoura lights.
Yeah.
And, I've got a good mate of mine that owns a block of land by the Clarence River where these things were, and that's probably another conversation, but really interesting over a few beers when you start talking about those things. So. That's something a bit different. Hopefully we don't get closed down or the men in the black suits don't come and knock on either our doors, but if they do, we'll offer them in for have a cuppa anyway. We might learn something interesting. So the aquaculture industry, it's been your life. What have you sort of got out of it? Like, what would be the benefits of, someone younger or not younger? I know I talk about bringing youth into the industry, but, there's jobs for everybody in every demographic. So, what's the aquaculture industry? Why would someone want to work in it, Mike?
Oh, it's a good pathway for a young fella. Like, you look at myself, I come as a bitty boy, didn't hardly even know what a boat looked like, back in 1988. And, I'd had a bit of a, I didn't want to waste my time. I wanted to come here and do something and work my way up through the ladder and, sort of got to where I am now. And so it's achievable. Yep. And it's a good industry to be in. It's a pretty healthy industry. And some of our boats now are 4 days on, 4 days off. So, it doesn't get much better than that. Like you work 4 days, you're gone home for 4 days, and good for your family life. They know what's happening. They know when you're coming and going. Like I say, there's a pathway there in a lot of the companies if you want to get stuck in and do it. So yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like opportunity, I think, is the word, isn't it? Like there's obviously a variety, and it's like anything. You've got to do the work, You've got to do the time, and the rewards will come there. I mean, unless you're planning on winning lotto next week, there's no real free lunches. You've got to get in industry, something. Obviously find something you enjoy is the most important thing, because what's that old saying? If you enjoy what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
So I think that's obviously really, really important to find something, as I say to my kids and other people, is find something that you actually enjoy, and eventually the money will come.
Yeah, no, you did right, Darren. I set my alarm for 5:20 in the morning, and even now I don't have to reset it and lie there. I just straight out of bed and ready to go to work. I still enjoy my job.
Yep.
I'm next month I'll be 66, and still really love my job. So, and that's how you got to. There's a job out there for everybody. Somewhere in the country, you just got to find that job that suits you. And have passion for it. And life's that short. You might as well give it a good shot and enjoy it. So, just find that job you want and you like, and go for it.
Yep, absolutely wise words. So what next for Mike? So what's the near and immediate future? What's the plan?
Well, I gave John Young and the directors, I gave them my intention, because I'm 66 next month, as I say, my retirement plan. So I retire at the end of next year, 2026. I gave them 3 years notice, and at some point you got to call it a day. And I want to touch wood. I got pretty good health, and wife's the same, and want to get out and enjoy our retirement years a bit before whatever happens. So yeah, we got a motorhome and trip around in that a bit, and hopefully do a lot more of that. We're heading away next month to the UK for a few weeks. But yeah, retirement, just a bit more hunting, a bit more biking, a bit more tripping around, and just I don't have too much of a plan, but yeah.
That's the benefit of retiring, You don't need to have too much of a plan. There's no meeting scheduled, and there's no appointments. You're just into it.
Yeah.
So.
No, just sort of. Well, I love my job. Sort of looking towards that final day now, and see what happens after that.
Yeah, no, it'll be. And look, you've been, you dedicated your career to the aquaculture industry, and they're lucky to have you, and there'll be big boots to fill. I understand you're training someone up, so that's really awesome. So look, thanks for everything you do for the industry and for First Mate. As we talked about earlier, you are a navigator, and so you're there. Just shows the sort of person you are, that you're giving back, and we're there to support people through the industry. So thanks very much, and I wish you the best in your upcoming, probably quite busy and enjoyable retirement.
Yeah, well, thanks, Darren. Yeah, no, it's great, and really love what you're doing here with this podcast. It's to keep this history alive. Some of the stuff about the fishermen and stuff you're doing. It's that I didn't know is really really good and valuable. So good work.
Excellent. No, thanks. I appreciate that, and long may it continue. So thanks again. So that's it. So if you enjoyed that, and you want to see more, you want us to continue, then please hit that subscribe button, and we will catch you on the next one. Thank you.